Welcome to Season 2 of Beneficial Conversations, your insider's guide to the evolving world of employee benefits. This season, we're going deeper into the strategies, stories, and solutions that are redefining how organizations support their people. From cutting edge benefit innovations to the real world challenges keeping HR leaders and CFOs up at night, we bring you honest conversations with the experts who are shaping the future of workplace well being. Whether you're designing benefits programs, advising clients, or simply want to understand what's next in the world of work, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to Beneficial Conversations. I am your host, CJ Jordan. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Jimmy Madeksho. He is the Regional Vice President for AMPS. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
I'm good. CJ, how are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I appreciate you making some time today. The first question that I ask everybody before we get into the fun stuff is, I need to hear about the best meal that you've had. This can be, I know you do a little bit of travel. It can be something you've made at home. It doesn't matter. I need to hear about the best meal that you've had.
Yeah, if I chose a travel meal, I think I'd get in trouble with my wife. So I'm going to go with the safe answer and
Okay.
say it was our 10-year anniversary, September 10th, 2021.
All right.
And so for anybody that's a math nerd, yes, my wife chose to get married on 9/10/11. So I will never forget our anniversary.
Love
But
it.
no, I mean, and it wasn't even the meal really. I mean, it was
Rarely is.
obviously it was a place,
Yeah.
it was a place called Dory, and it's even not even around anymore. Chef
Okay.
Dave shut it down. I don't know Chef Dave's last name, or I would give him credit, but it was a 10-course meal. Every
Love
other
it.
course had a wine pairing with it. It was a bunch of stuff that I couldn't pronounce, but it was perfect because usually I'm the one, on the grill or the Blackstone with my family,
Mhm.
and I'm always the one making the decisions. And this was no decisions whatsoever. Just bring me and
Yep.
I'll eat it. The wine was great with it. And another reason it sticks out too is because the very next morning at 6 a.m., it was the first time I ever ran 10 miles in a row because I was training for a marathon. So that wine hit, at 6 a.m. the next morning. But
Yeah.
that still stands out probably as my best meal ever.
It's reminiscent of I actually just finished watching the most recent episode or the series finale of The Bear, and that's what it kind of sounds like. You've got this awesome experience, 10 courses, all that kind of stuff. And, again, it's like you said, I don't even know what half this stuff is, but if you put it down in front of me, I'm going to eat it, and it's probably going to be incredible. That sounds, where was it?
It was called Dory in Memphis.
In Memphis. Okay. Oh, I must have missed that. I guess I was out by the time that happened.
Yeah, that's right. You're an old Memphis guy too, aren't you?
Indeed,
Young
indeed.
Memphis guy. You're a young Memphis.
Iris is my was my favorite spot in Memphis as far as most memorable meal.
Yeah, they've moved and they're great as well.
Uh-huh. Well, so I want to hear a little bit about your background because you've got kind of an interesting background. You've moved around kind of in and around this space a little bit. So tell me a little bit about kind of you're coming up through all of this and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I was a broker for 10
Yes.
years. And I feel like I've been with 10 different firms with all the consolidation that's happening in the employee benefits consulting world, as you know, but really it was just
Yep.
two. And I remember, so AMPS does a lot of things, but what a lot of people will probably know us best for is reference-based pricing.
Yep.
And I remember, 10 years ago, starting in this industry, and RBP was a four-letter word because everybody put the letter F in front of it, right? Like it's going to be too disruptive. It's too
Uh-huh.
noisy for your employees. We're not even going to talk about it. We're going to sell against it. And so I did. But I actually had a few clients come and say, hey, we want to bite the bullet. We want to do this. And so obviously in that situation, you need to leave the BUCA environment, right? Like you need to
Yeah.
leave Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna. You need an independent TPA. You need to have a network replacement,
Yep.
RBP is absolutely a piece of that. But I mean, lo and behold, year over year, we saved them 48%. And that's when the wool was removed from my eyes. I had delivered 48% increases before. And I'll tell
Yep.
you what, 48% decrease is a lot more fun to deliver. So,
Walking a little taller into that office to deliver that news.
yeah. Well, and there's some humility behind that story too. But yes, I mean, it really was kind of like a wake up call. Maybe what I've been told my entire career is a little bit off.
Hmm.
And so you kind of do have to do exactly what you're doing, right? Like you have to go outside of the four walls of your firm, even if you do have all these, national practice resources, specialty practices, and all that stuff. Like it is good to go outside and see what's happening in the industry and
Yeah.
really just be a forever student of it.
Yeah. So, what was it ultimately that led you to leave kind of the brokerage side and come over here to doing what you're doing now, kind of on the vendor side of it, if you will?
Yeah. Honestly, I had never even heard of amps. I had used other RBP vendors for
Sure.
clients. I'd at least dated some of them and used some others. And when amps reached out to me, to be honest, at first I wasn't even interested.
Yeah.
But the more I learned about them and their approach to the industry, I was like, this is cool stuff. This is probably the most strategic piece of our business, at least right now. Um, and it doesn't have the penetration, right? Like, and so I kind of, it was one of those God things, and
Yeah.
I looked at my wife and we had a conversation, and it was a chance for me to be more of a missionary instead of a mercenary.
Wow.
And so I I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun. You've probably heard of, training the trainer whenever you talk about with HR folks, but I
Yep.
feel like I'm consulting with the consultants now, and so I'm
Yeah.
having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, good. I love that. I mean, that mindset's awesome. So before we kind of jump into some of the maybe not quite the cookies bottom shelf, give me a breakdown of what RBP is. I mean, obviously I know, and you and I are familiar with it, but for somebody that's listening that may have heard of the like you said, the three letters, and they might have a fourth letter that they throw in there, but kind of give me the nuts and bolts of what RBP is and why it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. So RBP stands for reference based pricing, and I guess in its infancy, the pricing that's being referenced is Medicare, right?
Okay.
And
Yep.
traditionally, that's what everybody was tying the percentage of Medicare for the reimbursements for any kind of procedure, any kind of claim. And you know what? Actually, it's probably best. I usually start this out with telling a personal story about my daughter.
Yeah.
So when she was 6, we thought she was having little micro seizures. So we took her to one of the best children's hospitals in the country. I'm not going to name
Yep.
names, but we,
Yep.
we took them to we took her to one of the best children's hospitals in the country to get an EEG, where they plug up all these probes to your head and they try to induce a seizure and capture it. Um, and so we make the appointment. At the time, I'm with one of the bukas. We eat our own cooking now over here, so I'm not on a buka plan anymore. But um, so you go up to the front desk, right? Everybody's had this experience. You go to the front desk, you check in. You have no idea what this is going to cost. But being in the industry, I just asked flat out, like, "Hey, I love my daughter. Obviously, I want her to get the best care, but what's this going to cost me?"
Mhm.
Well, the answer I get is, well, we'll run it through your insurance and we'll bill you. And I said, I know you will, but I would like a good, I would love a good faith estimate
Right.
of what this is going to cost. I'm with one of the bukas. You can look it up there in your computer screen. She does. It's going to be $1,100. I was like, okay, I get it. I'm on a high deductible plan, so I'm responsible for every dollar, up
Yep.
to that point, anyways. Let's
Yep.
pretend I don't have insurance. If I give you my credit card right here, right now, what's that going to cost me? And the pushback you get when you ask that question is, you know, uh, I'm not assuming any malice to anyone. They just don't know how to answer it. Or they say, we can't do that because you've already showed me insurance. Well, no, that's
Yep.
not the case. Well, you don't want to do that because it won't go towards your deductible. Well, I live in Tennessee, which is one of those states that you can. Um, so I just said, look, just let me know. Like she has no clue. She has to go get her manager. Manager comes back. I had the exact same conversation. 5 minutes later, it's $157. So in the span of 10 minutes, it went from $1,100 to $157. And so usually
Same
when
test, same test, same doctor, same
same
everything.
hospital, same doctor, same EEG machine, the quality of my daughter's care did not change one lick. And so usually the question, I usually get two questions actually when I tell this story is, why in God's green earth are you able to get a better price than a Buka? And how is this even possible? Right? Like, how is this even possible? And why? I'll try to be politically correct. So there's a lot of answers to that question, right? Like,
Yep.
and I think one of the main ones is the time value of money is a real thing for these hospitals, right? If you think about what administering a claim is or submitting a claim to an insurance carrier and the idea that that's going to get denied or that's going to get clawed back later on, it's just it's the administrative burden is huge for these providers. And so they would much rather have cash right then, right there. And the other piece is, and I don't mean this as a political statement at all, but I think we have to all look at ourselves and come to the terms of, hey, the Affordable Care Act has been anything but affordable. And over the last 15 years, everybody has seen, the price of healthcare go up and up and up and up. Well, one of the stipulations within the Affordable Care Act is what they call the MLR, the Medical Loss Ratio Mandate. And basically what that's doing is saying, hey, for every dollar that an insurance company takes in premium, they have to spend 85 cents of that dollar in care. And so, look, good intentions become, unintended consequences. And usually when you tell CFOs that, they get it immediately because it's like, you're capping their margin at 15%. And so what's 15% of a bigger number? A bigger number. And so there's this unspoken rule or this unspoken game, if you will, that hospitals and insurance companies do every year. And the price goes up and they both benefit from the prices going up. Except, everybody benefits except for the patient and the employers.
Yeah, it's what we hear every year at renewal time.
I'm sorry.
Well, the cost of healthcare. No, I was just saying. I mean, that's what we hear every year at renewal time. Well, the cost of healthcare is going up. Well, yeah. And some of that is like we understand that. Like there's some incredible things that are happening in medicine, and there's some incredible advancements that are happening. Like not saying that there's not, but there's also probably a pretty basic reason, a simple reason why some of that is happening. And I think personally, I think a lot of it can be attributed to what was maybe a well-intentioned idea with that medical loss ratio. Well, again, if something costs $1,100, well, I'm capped at what I can spend. Well, then maybe next year it's 1,200 and then 13. Like, I mean, there's a logical reason why some of the cost of care is going up.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you look at somebody like, again, won't name drop, but the largest health insurer in the country, they own around 2,600 subsidiaries. And I think you'll have to check me on this, but I think it's about 160 billion of intercompany transfers. And so basically what that means is as these insurers continue to vertically integrate, they're going and they're capturing that other 85% because now that's part of the care and they can only make 15% margin on the insurance side. And so now they're going and they're buying hospitals and doctors' offices and PBMs and. And so the more that they do that, the more they're able to capture and raise the prices on that other 85%. So, and you're right, you're spot on. I'm a free market capitalism guy. Like I will sing that till the cows come home. But usually innovation leads to lower costs and a better quality of living and standard for everybody. And it's done the exact opposite in the healthcare industry.
So taking your example, like the concept of the reference-based pricing is when you are able to talk with the person and say, hey, let me pay you in full and up front, and you said it was 150 somewhere around there.
$7. Yeah.
The reference point for that specific procedure, correct? And so the reference-based pricing is attributing things back to that number as opposed to this $1,100 number up here that was going to be paid when you were using your insurance, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And I'll point everybody to a little video. You can probably find it on YouTube. Adam Ruins Everything. Have you ever heard of him? I think it was on True
Uh,
TV back in the day. But he explains in a really, really simple terms how the healthcare industry works and these charge master prices that the hospitals charge. And then
yeah,
the insurance companies just negotiate a discount, and it's like a discount on what? A discount on a fictitious number is still a fictitious number. And so, yes, Medicare is a very, very important benchmark that everybody still uses. But with all this transparency and coverage stuff that's going on, I mean, we can see, you know, the self-pay. We can see all of the rates for every CPT code in every state and every hospital for every procedure. So we know what a fair and reasonable price, and more importantly, a defensible price is
yeah,
for every procedure out there. And
yeah.
yeah, like I said, the time value of money is a real thing for these hospitals, and just like everybody else, cash is king.
Well, and I think like that's I don't think that reference based pricing is trying to not pay providers. Like I think that's
Absolutely
and
not.
correct me, I feel like that's a pretty common misconception is that there's this idea that you're trying to drive down the price and create this adversarial relationship between patients and providers, and I don't think that's it because I mean again, if you're able to pay things in full and upfront at a fair and reasonable
Yeah.
price, sure, it may not be 235% of Medicare, like that might happen through insurance, but you're going to pay these providers in full and upfront. Again, going back to the time value of money, not having to go through billing and claims and collections and all that kind of stuff, like one in the hand, two in the bush, like all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's a common misconception, and you live in this all day, every day, but it's not trying to not allow providers to be profitable or make money, but rather pay them an appropriate amount, but just do it, in full upfront or within a very reasonable period of time.
Right, right. And I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. Providers, especially private practices, are starting to realize this for themselves, right? Like my same daughter, we went to the neurologist office separate from the hospital. And as soon as you walk in there, there's a big sign on the window at the front desk that says in very politically correct language, hey, we are no longer accepting Blue Cross Blue Shield. Here's why. We would love to still, have you as a patient, and we will make arrangements in whatever way, shape, form we can. And it's just so funny because my wife, we have 3 kids, and my wife was always the biggest critic of our health insurance. And she looks at me and she's like, "Aren't you in this industry? Like, can't you figure this out?" And you know what? Ever since I've joined AMPS and we do eat our own cooking and we are on a reference-based pricing plan, she has nothing but great things to say. I mean, she's like, this is the best insurance we've ever had. And
Mm-hmm.
so the mechanics behind the plan aren't nearly as important as the member experience, calling a number with your TPA that they actually pick up the phone instead of a 1-800 catch me if you can with a Buka card. So it is you can absolutely build a better plan with less money. RBP has always gotten this bad rap, like you were talking about, right? Like they kind of equate it to the MEX or the MVP plans, like, oh, this isn't really insurance. This is a scam. This is a scam, or you have to offer it because you got a big workforce of low wage employees, and nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, you can really build a strong, rich plan with a reference-based pricing and a physician and ancillary network and direct contracts. Like it can look and feel so much better than the Buka box.
I would argue that the bigger scam is the Buka plans. Like, if we really want to get down into the nuts and bolts, like being promised a
Yeah.
certain thing,
Yeah.
being promised value for something, and it not really delivering. Like, again, I think you're right that RBP gets a bad rap, but like if you really want to get down and start comparing like the actual value for what you're paying, I mean, I think one can be called a scam, and it's not the RBP option.
Right. Right.
What?
No, I 100% agree. And I mean, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, like, when you tell, because that's such a powerful example that you used in your story. Like, I mean, to me, it just like it irritates the fire out of me hearing like these massive discrepancies between the prices and things like that. Like, I think as I started in this industry and started peeling back some of the layers, like I just started to get more irritated and frustrated. And I think that's just like it creates kind of a visceral reaction. Like, what is the reaction when you're talking with CFOs and HRs and sharing that kind of story and being able to say, like, hey, this is just a single claim example, but like extrapolate this out over all of the other claims that you're dealing with, your labs, your imaging and stuff like that. Like, does it create a pretty powerful conversation like as you're sharing that? And what is that response from CFOs and HRs when you're talking with them and sharing that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends. Um, I always kind of say, hey, if this decision was left up to the CFOs or the board, RBP would have taken off a long time ago.
Yeah, that's good.
And not that HR has been the gatekeeper. I think once once HR kind of gets their head wrapped around it and really dives in, I've heard a lot of them call it fun, right? Like this is the most fun I've had in my career because I'm really making an impactful change for my employees. Because you know, as as the cost rises for employers, it's risen for employees too, right? The answer has always been let's raise the deductibles, let's raise the out of pocket maximum. And when you can go to your employees and say, hey, look, we're going to make some changes, but we're going to let you share in the savings with this. You've just got to work with us a little bit here. You know, earlier on in my career, the HR department thought disruption was going from Cigna to Blue Cross. Like that was a huge disruption. And so when you're talking to them about changing, going from a BUCA self-insured, I call that self-insure-ish. Like if you're in a BUCA model, you're truly not self-insured because you're still, like I said, beholden to those negotiated network prices that are inflated because of that MLR. And so you made
Yeah.
the choice to go self-insured for a reason. Let's make sure that you're actually self-insured and you're actually being able to change for the better, for the high performance of the plant.
Because yeah, I think you're right. Like, I mean,
And
there's only so much juice out of the lemon that you can squeeze when you are in that self-funded with a buga. I think it's a tremendous first step, and to be able to understand some of the claims and where your problem and hot button issues are. But there's only so much that you can do within the framework of that. And so, like, what does that next step look like? And I think you're spot on with what you were talking about.
yeah, I mean, in my humble opinion, if if the HR department were to embrace this and they were the ones to bring it to their C-suite and they were the ones to say, hey, look, I think we can save, 25 to 35%. And I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and I'm willing to learn this. Think of the notch on the belt of their career that would do. I mean, the fact that they can raise their hand and say, hey, I've implemented this thing. I've saved my company a bunch of money on one of the largest line items on the P&L. I think that's a huge story for their career. And so it's just reframing it, right? Like instead of let's be scared of it, let's embrace it and let's work towards a better solution for everyone. I would say, I would say, whether you like it or not, you are an insurance company, right? Like I don't care if you make widgets or you're a financial service company, because of the Affordable Care Act, if you have more than 50 full-time equivalents, you are an insurance company. And so you might as well embrace that. A, B, you might as well go ahead and embrace the fact that you're a marketing company too. Like you've grown and you've gotten to where you are as a business for your ability to market and advertise to your external customers. Well, guess what? You've got a captured audience of internal customers called employees that you need to sell them on every single day of why this is a great place to work and it's got great benefits. And that's the other thing is, these employers are spending so much money on these buka plans. And then if you go ask the employees how what do you think about the health insurance plan? Oh, it sucks. And so it's like, why am I spending so much money on something that my employees are going to come and complain about anyways? So it's just, you got to reframe it.
I think like I've always wanted to do like a blind you know, not like a taste test, but you'll understand what I'm talking about, where you literally lay down two benefit programs in front of people. And, on the
Mm-hmm.
one, it's, hey, we've got a $1,000 deductible, 20% coinsurance, to 4,000, we'll call it. And you've got $35 copays for primary care and 60 for specialists, whatever. We're making things up here. And hey, it's with one of your buka programs. But again, we're not laying out any of that. We're just overview of the plan on this side. And then over here, we've got one that's, you and I would call it tier and steer. Like, hey, we've got this one. You have the opportunity for a $0 deductible, a $0 out of pocket max. You get direct primary care that's zero cost to you. You get some care navigation that's built into it. And you just lay that out there and you put it in front of somebody. Oh, and it's cheaper than this plan over here. And you put that in front of somebody and say, hey, which option do you like better? And have them be able to look at it. And like, I wonder how many people will be like, oh yeah, give me this $1,000 deductible up to a $4,000 max with all these copays, as opposed to this option over here that's cheaper and better. And then you sit there, and after they likely pick the tier and steer option with the RBP component or what have you built into it, you're like, okay, just so you know, like this option that you like because you believe it's better coverage, it doesn't have a Buka network. And like, but I feel like that's the thing that like would be a light bulb moment for people. It's like, oh, I'm choosing a healthcare program as opposed to a health insurance one.
Yeah, yeah. And what you're describing is possible. We call it a dual option, right? And so for the right employer, they can sit there and say, hey, look, we don't want to force anything. And so we're going to give
Yeah.
you the option to choose a Buka plan. We're going to give you the option to do this. Um, let's call it an independent network with RBP and direct contracts, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and let your employees vote with their wallet. 100%. You're exactly right. And you can even get so creative as, let's, if you do want to do a direct primary care, or if you do want to do a care navigation system, hey, in this plan, if you call us first, like let us be your, secretary for all of your medical care, and let us make those appointments for you. If you do that, if you call us and you take our advice and let us guide you through this healthcare industrial complex, we will waive the deductible. We will waive the copay. And so you can get really creative with these health plans when you actually go truly self-insured.
Yeah. I'm curious from your side because you've got the benefit of having the benefits background and also kind of where you are. Give me your give me your ideal plan, like build one with me and kind of take me through the building blocks, the cornerstone pieces that you want to incorporate. And let's just, I mean, we'll call it just a little example or a strategy session, but what are the key things? And again, we're painting in broad brushstrokes. It's going to be different for each group. We understand some people may not need certain things, but ideal scenario, what are you thinking is the best way to serve a group and kind of building out a program for them?
Oh man, that's a big question.
And
So
we won't get into all the different pieces, but I'm talking like the things that need to be just, hey, has to have something like this and a couple of those things, and we'll walk through it. I mean, again, I know that this could go into 1,000 different directions, but I'm just curious from your side.
yeah, I think there's two main philosophies when it comes to these RBP-ish plans. One is to say, hey, let's go straight copays. And so the provider knows what to take from the member and then knows what to get reimbursed when they call us. It makes it a little bit it makes it a lot more simplified. My argument would be if you're trying to do the steer and tier and you're trying to get people to call into that care navigation, you need to make those copays large enough to where they find value in actually calling us first instead of going and paying those copays. I've always been on a high deductible plan my entire life with an HSA. And so, that's an HSA is a microcosm of self insurance, anyways. I think the problem is these high deductible plans have gotten super high.
Right.
And I think the minimum this year is 1,700, give or take. And I would set it up the way we've set it up here at AMPS is, hey, you've got a high deductible plan of 1,700, but they're also seeding 1,700 in our HSA. And so basically, you've got your first dollar coverage already from the HSA from the employer. And then whatever you contribute to it is, just money in the pot. I know
Yeah.
people that are maxing out their HSAs before they even max out their 401ks because they know that, hey, as I get older, the more of my money is going to be spent on healthcare, and that the definitions of what you can spend those HSA dollars on is expanding as well. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, those are the two thoughts I would say is, hey, seed the HSAs as an employer, you're going to see that return. Or if you go the copay route, which simplifies it for the member and the provider tremendously, at least make those copays high enough to see the value in calling us first and steering you into the highest value provider.
And talk to me about that care navigation piece, because I do think that that's a huge, huge component of all of this. Like, I think that's a big part of what helps make a program like this successful. Because, like, you used it earlier, like the healthcare industrial complex, I think is what you said, which is a pretty appropriate term for this because it's
Yeah,
so vast, it's so complicated, and trying to just pat somebody on the backside and say good luck figuring it out, like I feel like
yeah.
that could be a big place where some of this stuff breaks down. So what does that care navigation piece look like from y'all's side?
Well, so I always say there's three types of people within any group, right? There's the people that just buy health insurance so they can say they have health insurance, right? It's the adult thing to do, it's the responsible thing to do. They're never going to use it. They don't know what
Yep.
a deductible is. They don't care what a deductible is. That's fine. And so we don't need to ruffle those people's feathers by saying, "Hey, all these changes are coming." Um, the other piece of the puzzle is the people that are truly sick, right? The high utilizers, like I said, that are begging for help navigating this healthcare industrial complex. Like they don't know. They don't know that they should go get a second opinion. They don't know if who their doctor is, referring them to is just because it's a referral inside the same system, so that hospital can capture those dollars as well. And so,
Yep.
just having somebody that they can call, that's not their employer, that's not Big Brother, right? Like somebody that they can say, "Hey, I know you understand this system way better than I do. Here's my condition. Where could I go? Where should I go? How much is it going to cost me?" All that stuff. Those are the type of people that really, really find value in this plan, is because they've been begging for this for however long they've had their condition. And then the third piece is, you'll probably appreciate this. It's the C-suite, right? It's the VIPs. More accurately, it's the C-suite's spouse, that doesn't want to be turned away at their pediatrician when they take their kids to go get their annual checkup. And so we know who these people are, right? Because we can see the claims, we can work with the broker, and so we're just trying to make sure that we have an answer for each one of those. In other words, to answer your question, it's not a one size fit all. It's we're taking a look at, hey, who actually are the high utilizers? Who are the
Yeah.
VIPs? Let's not try and make your employees insurance nerds, because like I said, the vast majority of America does not know the difference between a copay and coinsurance, and they don't want
Yep.
to know. And so
Yep.
let's not try to make them insurance nerds. Let's just try to help them understand you've got a concierge here, and they're going to help you navigate this place.
Yeah. What in your experience, because I know y'all have launched this with a lot of different groups, what, for those who might be considering something like this, like what are the pieces to help make it most successful as far as rollout, like from HR and CFO and stuff like that? Like what do they need to be aware of? I guess best practices that you've seen as far as rolling this out and kind of making it a as smooth an experience as possible. We understand that bumps are going to happen, friction is going to happen at times, but like how can we minimize that during rollout?
Yeah, I would say there's three keys again to this. I like frameworks, so there's three
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
keys to helping it roll out a little bit more successfully, and it's communication, communication, communication. And we all know that no matter how much you communicate, it doesn't matter. So it's going to go in one ear and out the other for some people. But communicate early and often. Communicate even if there's nothing to communicate yet. Communicate that there's nothing to communicate yet. There's nothing. Nothing has changed.
Right.
Um, and just quite frankly, communicate to make sure that you're saving your own butt. Like
Yeah.
we want everything time, date, stamped. Especially, and I'm talking more now when we interact with providers, but it's very, very important to create basically like a ledger. Here's the facts of when we reached out, when we didn't, and so to basically build that marketing campaign like we talked about earlier for your internal customers. I mean, that's huge. And I know from being on the brokerage sides, there's communication departments and all of these big houses, and they're helping build out these employee guides, and whether it's decision support tools or it's the benefits enrollment software. There's multi channels that you can reach people, not just through emails and text messages. So yeah, communicate, communicate, communicate.
No, I think that's right. I wonder, like, because I thought about this the other day, as you're communicating some of these things and some of the changes and letting people know, hey, this is the direction that we're going to go. I mean, I feel like using, I mean, not your example specifically, but if you can paint the picture for your employees ahead of time and give them the example of the price discrepancy and stuff like that ahead of time, before open enrollment, hey, this is what we're looking to do. Let me give you an example of what this would look like in practical, like in reality. On this plan, with a Blue Cross Blue Shield, this specific procedure would cost you, X amount and blah, blah, blah. However, with the
Yeah.
plan that we're moving to, and the reason that we're doing it is this same exact procedure running through insurance would be $0 in this scenario, or whatever the number might be, so that they can start to understand and piece together, oh, okay, like light bulb moment, this goes off. Like they're not trying to make this coverage worse. They're not trying to take things away from me. I can see through this example that they're trying to allow MRIs that used to cost $500 at this facility to now be $0. I just, part of me thinks that using real world and real examples for people that tie back to, like you said, voting with their wallets and, hey, we're trying to remove barriers to care and keep money in your pocket. This is why we're doing it. This is why we're doing it. And just keep continuing to emphasize that. And then, you kind of talk a little bit about the how that happens. I kind of thought about that the other day. Like, why don't we start including that ahead of time instead of just dumping a massive change on them and being like, good luck.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you kind of touched on it, but in this model, the pre-cert process is not there to deny care. It's there to redirect it to a more high value facility. And usually people appreciate that. It's kind of just like the drug world where, you can go down the street to a Walgreens or a CVS, and the same Walgreens or CVS 2 miles down, the drug price is going to be completely different. And so, why is that? And there are vendors out there that will do that navigation like you're talking about, but they're doing it within the networks themselves, within these buka networks. And the problem with that is they're still buka networks, right? They're still inflated prices from that MLR mandate. And so if you're going to do that, if you're going to spend the time, money, and resources into care navigation, you might as well be navigating them to real value instead of fictitious value from a fictitious discount.
So walk me through what a real life example would look like for somebody who's going to be on this program and has to go get a certain procedure done. You can do whatever example. Like, what is that experience going to look like for the employee, um, to kind of go through the process from beginning to end? And I know that, well, it wouldn't be applicable in this one. So let's just focus here, and then I've got a follow up question about a different service that y'all offer. But what does that look like
Yeah.
from beginning to end for that employee? Because I think this will kind of help people understand it's not quite as bad as it sounds, or it's been made out to be
Yeah. And I
anyway.
mean, I'll start out. Yeah, and I'll start out with, hey, what could go wrong, right? Like, what could go wrong is I've not paid attention to any of the communication that my employee has given me or we have given you. And I go to a doctor and I give them my card and they look at it. I always say, like, my biggest competitor is the person at the front desk and a logo on a card. And they look at the card and they say, I don't recognize this, so I know we don't accept this. And it's like, somebody like me or you would know to push back on the pushback,
Right.
but that triggers an emotional reaction and they get all fired up. They leave the hospital or the provider. They call their HR. HR tries to talk to them. HR freaks out. HR calls me. So that's what could happen. That's what could
Sure.
happen. Another part could happen is they walk in and the person behind the front desk says, I haven't seen this before, but let me call the number on the back to see what this is all about. Then we get involved. And then once we explain it to them, 99 out of 100 times, they're going to be like, oh, this is great. You mean I'm going to get paid in 2 days instead of maybe 60, maybe 90? Great. The other path, like we were just talking about with the care navigation, is hey, uh, you can't do this for a heart attack, right? You can't do this for an ER. But if I
Totally.
know I'm going to yeah, if I know I'm going to need an ACL surgery like I've had, uh, that can be planned, right? Like
Yep.
nobody is going to see me for the next 2, 3 weeks, anyways, if you're lucky. It could be 6 or 7. But hey, call us, tell us what's going on. By the way, we've seen the claim come through already. And so we're proactively outreaching to that member anyway, saying, hey, we saw that you saw this specialist. Uh, what was the outcome? And the more that the member will share with us, the better. Because then we can really redirect care into a high value facility. Um, and it's so funny too because we've gone this whole time without even bringing up balance bills, right? And usually balance bills is like the first thing that people,
Yep.
freak out about over reference-based pricing. Um, and the No Surprises Act helped tremendously with that. I'd say we're at about 1% of all medical claims that come through our doors, 1% actually get balance billed. And by the way, I must be the most unlucky person in the world because I've actually been balance billed as well in a Blue Cross, a BUCA environment, excuse me. And so, I mean, it happens in a BUCA environment as well.
Yep.
So let's just make sure that that's not fear mongering anymore. Let's take balance bills off the table. If you do get one, take a picture of it, send it to us. We've got a portal for all of that. You'd be amazed at how many pictures we get of EOBs. Even though the EOB says this is not a bill all over it, we still get pictures of EOBs, but that's okay. That's great. That means they're engaging with us and we can explain how everything works and say, hey, look, if you get another bill that is different from the number that this says, call us again, take a picture of it again, send it to us. We're here for you. And so again, in a BUCA environment, you just don't have that hand holding. Like you don't have that person, watching your plans back and watching your members back to make sure that this doesn't happen. Because I mean, I don't know how big a group would have to be for me to be able to say this confidently, probably about 1,000. But if you think that being on a BUCA plan is making sure that your employees aren't getting sent to collections, I'm sorry to tell you that that's not true. Like they are getting sent to collections in a BUCA environment regardless. And so you might as well have somebody like us that's ready and willing to be their backup, to have their back.
Well, and also, like, Marty McCarty wrote a whole book on it. Like, don't pay the first bill either. Like, just because you got one doesn't mean that you have to pay it immediately. Like, it's everybody take a deep breath. And,
Yeah.
like you said, if you were to get a balance bill in this case, like take a picture, send it along, you don't have to pay it immediately. It's fine. And you can get coaching on, hey, you know what? You do owe this, or you don't owe this, or we'll handle it. Like, but somebody will be able to tell you, because right now, I mean, currently in the environments, and this is going to lead into the other part of y'all's, what y'all do, but like the amount of money that gets paid on claims that shouldn't be paid because something got coded incorrectly or upcharged or something along those lines, there's nothing in
Yeah.
place in most arrangements. Like, people just think, okay, I got this balance bill, I got this bill, I guess I owe it, because like most of the country is healthcare illiterate. And I don't mean that rude, but like they don't know what they don't
No, you're
know.
right.
Oh, I got, it must be the right amount because I know I went for a certain claim. The claim obviously happened, so this must be what it costs. But 99% of bills are inaccurate. And so people just pay willy nilly. But like in this scenario, not only are you protected in this from, just being, hey, I got this, let me send it off and they'll tell me what to do, but y'all even have a whole other section of the business that can provide some protection for groups as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And first off, I think it was Marshall Allen who wrote the book Never Pay the First
Oh,
Bill. Great book, by the way. No, you're fine. I actually got to see him present at a conference before he unfortunately passed away about a month later. But I think, his work as a journalist and uncovering all of this stuff that's going on in this industry is tremendously helpful for the individual, right? But then, as you mentioned, Marty McCary wrote the book The Price We Pay, and
right.
I would recommend yeah, I would recommend every single broker consultant in the country read that book because, and don't take my word for it, like this whole the game that we talked about that goes on. He actually has, I think it's the first or second chapter in his book. It's called The Game, and he describes everything that we've been talking about at the very beginning of this conversation. So yeah, don't take my word for it. Go outside the four walls of whatever shop you're at, and really like study up on this because I've been saying for 5 years now that this is the future, and I think it's here. I know it's here. Um, but yeah, to your point earlier, AMPS started 20 years ago as a group of doctors that got together and created a medical bill review company. And so you can imagine, stop loss carriers and these jumbo groups are coming to this group of doctors with one claim, right? $1 million claim or $500,000 claim back when that was a big deal 20 years ago. And they're just saying, hey, before we just blindly pay this, can we put physicians' eyes on this and make sure that we're not, getting taken advantage of? Um, and so, yes, they're looking for duplicates. They're looking for upcoding. They're looking for improper unbundling. They're looking obviously from the clinical side, like, hey, was the proper course of care followed here? And they'll go back and they'll renegotiate with the hospital. And in that model, they're taking a percentage of savings. And as you can imagine, these clients are like, this is great proactively, retroactively, can we not do this more proactively? And so that's how we kind of got into the RBR business, is what they called it back then, before RBP was truly the industry. Reference based reimbursement is what we called it. But yeah, I mean, the whole idea of pricing integrity is a whole nother piece of this puzzle, because that's what the Bucas have been claiming for the longest time, is that their contracts are their intellectual property, right? Like that's their competitive differentiator, is the contracts that nobody else is allowed to see. Well, that's fine, but when the employees or the employers and their employees are on the hook for paying these prices that they don't know about, that becomes a problem. That becomes a fiduciary liability. And,
Yeah,
you know, it's just, you said it, but like 90 something percent of all claims have errors in them, right? Some people call it fraud, waste, and abuse. I call it mistakes. Humans make errors. It's going to happen.
for
Um,
sure.
but whereas, some people early on in this industry, in the RBP industry, kind of went, scorched earth and drew a line in the sand and said, here's 120% of Medicare. If you don't like it, come after us. We take a different approach, right? Like we are coming to them with the payment integrity in
Yeah.
mind. And yes, we have in-house legal. Yes, we have in-house doctors. Yes, we have all the data in the world to bring forth a fair, reasonable, and defensible price. And so when you're having that kind of conversation with providers, it just changes it. Like, we're not adversarial.
Yeah.
We know what's fair. They know what's fair. And so it just, our model lends itself to a much less abrasive experience for everyone. I hope that answers the question.
No, I think that was great. And but y'all will also even do some billing audits for groups that might already be self-funded. I mean, I remember talking with a group that was self-funded and was asking how things were running. And they had talked about, some large claims that they had and some stop loss and stuff like that. And my question was, did you have anybody do an audit on those just to make sure that everything was accurate, that you weren't being overcharged and stuff like that? And they were like, well, Blue Cross would do that for us, right? And I was like, no, like that's, they're not going to bend over backwards to do that. But y'all have the ability to kind of go back and even review. In each state is different. Like, I understand some of that, but you can go back with a group and say, not fully insured groups, y'all are kind of off to the side on this, but for groups that are self-funded and have access to the claims and stuff, you can actually go back and take a look at some stuff and do an analysis on this, right?
Correct. Yeah, we call it our retro review and recovery. And to your point, yes, the BUCAs do this. Yes, the word audit gets very tricky when some of these service agreements are thrown around. And they'll say they do their own audits. And when they do catch their mistakes that they've overpaid a provider, they'll go claw that back. And then they'll have the shared savings language in these service agreements where they get paid on the percentage of savings that they've already gone back and they've already overpaid on. And so they're getting paid on their mistakes and sending it. Yeah. So you get the game. And it is a game. In my
Yes.
mind, that's the employer's money. That's their employees' money that they've already overspent. And so every single one of those dollars should go back to the employer. But yes, we also do that. It's usually 3-year review. And I say, look, any recovery that we could potentially get from doing this review is just icing on the cake. I'm saying do it for your fiduciary duty, because whether you like it or not, again, because of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, we were HR, CFOs, total rewards directors, they've always been fiduciaries, but the CAA of 21 really kind of shined a
Yep.
light on saying, hey, look, we're going to start enforcing this, because basically you're taking the employee contribution and buying something that is overpriced. And like it's unreasonable. And so you're going to see more and more of these lawsuits for breach of fiduciary duty. And you're probably going to see it more and more on the big brands. If you've, paid attention to anything that's going on with the Johnson and Johnson case, and there's a few other high profile ones out there, but it's it's going to come to a head here in the next 5-ish years for sure. The fiduciary duty it's a big deal now.
Well, and that kind of leads into my next question. I mean, kind of the 5 and 10 year, setting the fiduciary piece kind of aside, like what are you expecting? What are you thinking as far as the next 5 years? Like, I'm I'm probably overly bullish on. I think that more groups are going to start going. I'm not saying that like all of a sudden it's going to be this massive, like the majority or anything like that, but I don't know if you hold the same belief that I do think more people are going to start to move away from the traditional buka because they're continuing to see some of the issues with it. But what are your expectations in kind of the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I don't think I can get away from this question without referencing AI.
Sure.
Everybody calls it chat GPT. I call it chat CPT, the CPT codes that are, going to be, every hospital system has um, a revenue cycle management department, right? And they are there for the sole purpose of maximizing reimbursements via gaming the CPT code language. And it is a whole nother language that the normal human has a really hard time learning, but not for AI, not for chat CPT. So The hospitals are going to be gaming AI in that regard, but the insurers are obviously going to be gaming it in that regard as well. They already are for denying claims and down coding, underpayments, and so the AI chat CPT wars have already started, and I'm sure it'll continue in the next 5 years. Um, but for beyond that, I mean, I really do think doctors are smart. Doctors are smart people, and I think the more that we can train and educate doctors on how self insurance works, and instead of just writing a script to CVS down the road, hey, there's an international pharmacy that we can go ahead and source from, and I know it's going to be cheaper. Or there's a manufacturing assistance program that I know we can do. Or there's a 340B hospital that's right down the street that I can go source this drug from there. Like the more doctors understand the pricing around healthcare, because they didn't get into it to gouge people, right? They didn't get into it to
Yep.
make a financial burden on these people. They got into it to help people. And so, unfortunately, and look, I'm all for wellness programs, point solutions, whatever you want to call them, but at some point, financial wellness is the key driver here. And the more that we crank up those deductibles, the more we crank up those out of pocket maximums and premiums, people are going to start wondering, what am I even paying for? And so we need practitioners to be on our side of the fight. And yes, the clinical piece of it is important, but we need to make sure that we're focusing on the financial wellness of the patients as well.
Yep. Yep. Well, man, this was great. I mean, I think there's a ton of incredible insights in here, and I'm super appreciative of your time and knowledge. Where can people find you? How can people talk to you? Give me that, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, my email address is jmadeksho@amps.com. I know it's a weird last name. So JMADEKSHO at amps.com. But I'm all over LinkedIn too. I feel like I live on LinkedIn sometimes. So shoot me a DM and I guarantee you I'll get back to you.
All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate your time this morning. Super informational, and hope you have a great day.
You too, bud. Thanks so much.
Thanks.